Okay, yesterday I took my 51 Ford truck for a drive to get some gas, run some errands, and I came back to the truck and this happened. Nothing. No response at all to the ignition switch. So this console is out of a 1974 Chevelle, and so is the ignition switch. Ignition switch is on the upper part of the console underneath the dash. So what I'm going to do is drop this console and get to work on that. Let's get busy. Alright, so here are the bolts, and not a whole lot different than they would be in a Chevelle. So I got to take this one off and this one. So I get to that. First things first, pull the negative lead off of your battery so you don't have juice going through your system. You don't want to short anything out. Negative lead is off the battery and we're ready to go. Alright, I'm going to have to take this saddle off too. That looks like ½ inch. Yep, ½ inch. Now that'd be the same on a Chevelle. And this saddle just attaches to the bottom of the console body, and it straps the console body up to the dashboard. Now I've got a fabricated heavy steel piece down here that allows me to mount this up just like it would in a Chevy, in case you're interested. Okay. Now you can see here, this side goes toward the driver. So here you can see is the plug and the switch. And this plug it's got to come out. We're going to unmount that switch because there's a shaft that goes up along this and up to the ignition switch. When I turn that ignition switch this way, it pushes the shaft down here in that switch body and places the switch mechanism on the correct contacts to start the car. Anyway, back to business. You can see here I've got some bolts. I've got two, one here and one here. Take those off and that'll pull the whole switch base off, and then we can have a look at that switch and make sure that it's working okay, or see if it needs to be replaced. So now if you watch when I turn the key, you'll see this rod move. That's in the forward start position, and that's in the back lock position. Lock, start. It's just a steel shaft. That's all it is. Connected directly to your ignition switch. Okay, if you're ever wondering what the inside of one of these switches looks like, here's the outside part with the plugs. Here's the inside, and these are the various contacts for these plugs. And it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle how these contacts here roll on this slider. Now you got a roller here. Let me take these off and you can get a better look. You got two springs here. Let me just dump this. You got a bunch of springs. You got the smaller springs here, the two bigger springs here that house the roller, like so. Alright, get the roller here, and then you've got small springs here, so I'm going to put these springs back in, like so. Two springs per space. Now all of these contact sliders are the same size, so it doesn't really matter which one you put where. And you can see by the wear pattern that it's the more rounded side that goes down and contacts these. So basically these will be facing, and what we're looking at here is the downside of this. So these basically face down but facing up when you're working on it. And the springs push those contacts down on these to give it a positive connection. Now you can see here was arced. You can see the arcing here and the arcing down here, and the arcing was all over this. So it wasn't getting a good contact. It was getting some arcing here as well. And these were a little bit mussed up. You don't want your contacts to be mussed up at all. You don't want anything dirty on them, any grease. Although this could be electrical grease, dielectric grease, but I don't think that it is. I think it's just grease to make the plastic move. And I can see that these parts that it slides on are worn, as well as the contacts themselves are worn. Now, technically, I could reuse this. Now, this part here goes toward the spring. So, now you have one of these roller pins that go in each end of this. And you see it's got square or rectangular pockets, and that just makes that roll easier on the top of this. You can see where those have rolled. Actually, this thing's pretty well worn. Let's put this thing back together. So here you got 2 bendo clips and 1 bendo clip. Okay, so I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to bend that clip over. Do this side next. And this last one. One more part. You got this part here, and you see it's got these 2 little forks. They slide down into these little holes here. And then these slide over these clips here, like so, and they give you a little bit of protection here from anything moving up and arcing on those. And that's all there is to that. So basically you have your completely assembled switch. Now when you put this back in, your key should be in the ignition, key should be in the locked position, and the little rod that comes down, it's got a hook. Hooks in here. Make sure that this is all the way forward, lock position, before you mount this. If you hook it here and that hook will go in, your ignition isn't going to work. Lock position, remember. There'll be a quiz. Now technically, this will work, but I'm not going to put it back in. That was just to show you how this whole assembly works. It's worn out enough. I'm going to buy a new one because I don't want to get stuck again like I did yesterday. Alright, here we have the original part, and here we have the replacement part. Not exactly the same. I mean, there's different manufacturing techniques, but if you look at them, they got all the right parts in all the right places. And essentially, those are exactly the same. So now we're back in business. Now remember, This has to be put all the way forward. Okay, so everything went back together in the opposite order, and let's see if it starts.
That's the name of that tune. All finished. Works like a champ.